Good morning. It's Sunday, September 8th, 2024, and I'm in one of my favorite places, the Verona Community Garden. It's in beyond full bloom at this point. I highly recommend if you're a local resident, please come by in the next couple weeks. It's really magnificent, and we now have a dedicated area back there. As you go through that first gate, there's a public area for people to come on in and they take a look at some of the things we're growing. We did a major expansion this year on having a public area, but then having many more beds put in so that more gardeners could participate, because we've had an extensive wait list here for every year that we've been in operation. And I have a lot of gratitude, and I'm just really grateful for a couple of specific, people who have really helped keep this project going, as I've had a lot of other things going on in my life, particularly Carol Thomas and Carrie Burris and all the other members of our committee that have, come and gone over the last few years. Some of us have had to take breaks, but when you've got committed volunteers, the beauty doesn't stop and the projects don't stop. And this was an extensive feat, and it always is, especially in this case, this garden is on, school and town property. So it involves a lot of coordination and all that kind of stuff. So I'm coming on here because what I want to say about the garden is why it was so important, to me and for me to create a space like this. And I had moved from Oregon in 2017. I had been living out there for about 7 years. I went to medical school, Eastern Medical School. And, when I returned to New Jersey, I was honestly in shock of what was going on in my own community that I had grown up in and been raised in, as it related to the way that people saw and respected, or the lack thereof, their natural resources. And so not just that, we have obviously been coming out of some election years that had really started creating divide in people. 2016, I don't need to tell you how that obviously went down for so many people and their experience of that time. And to me, I am for as long as I know, I've just always felt that doing whatever you can to better and involve your community and create community and opportunities for community is so important, for so many reasons. It allows us to pursue our passions. It allows us to be seen. It allows us to connect. So for me, this garden, when I came back, was something that was incredibly, the work and the passion on it was incredibly, therapeutic in my healing processes. I had a lot going on in my life at the time. And, and it wasn't long before we were about to launch and get this garden open that the pandemic had started. And, a lot of things slowed down. The cost of things like, wood in particular, cedar was so expensive. And so we had plans for this to be about the size that it is now. But we cut it back because we knew, it was because of the times we were in, the costs that were involved, that maybe let's, start at a smaller level. And the demand for the garden was huge, and it continues to be every year. Even with having expanded this year, we still have people that unfortunately were not able to get a bed with the wait list and lottery system that we use to assign gardeners. We now do have a public area that people can be a part of, though. But I'm digressing because I had an experience yesterday. Actually, it was online, and I know it's not a place that is easy to have conversations. It's actually why I think it's important we have physical spaces like this to gather and, meet really around something we all have in common, or something we all have a passion about. So the people who are in here, it's really You can't go buy a bed in here and not see how much people have been putting care and energy into this, and clearly it's something they love based on the way it looks right now. And I think that that is vital right now. And I say vital because I think it's vital. I had an experience yesterday I was actually online, but I was within a smaller forum that a person I deeply respect their work. I've been advocating their work for a long time, and their books and etc. And they really are, taking a different approach in their way within that community, particularly in these months as we were leading up to the election. And I was really disappointed in the kind of interactions I was seeing in that group. It's a very spiritually focused group, and I don't mean spiritual in the sense of airy-fairy. I mean, like, how are we practically living spiritual lives, kind of people. And, I just, there's lots of memes and, this side versus that side and going on, and pretty much there's an intolerance for anyone that doesn't identify as a particular side of that spectrum. If you're not ocean color, red or blue, I'm not going to say which in this case, but then you're not welcome, and you can leave, and you don't have to like it. And I understand that everybody has free will. Obviously the things I post on my pages are quite controversial at times, and I'm sure lots of people don't want to hear it. That's why I also say, please, as when I'm trying to get better at saying, hey, this is what I'm about to talk about, I highly recommend you go to another page if this is going to trigger you. Because I think we owe each other that responsibility now. Our time and our energy is precious, and so we should know that a lot of what we are going to talk about and a lot in these months is likely and could be triggering for people. And I don't really have any interest in upsetting people, but I also don't have any interest in shifting who I am to make other people comfortable either. I can just acknowledge, who I am and what I'm doing. Anyway, I bring this up because I really I did have an interaction with the person that leads that community, and it was not very fruitful, in the sense that I was basically saying, isn't there a way we can fight for what we, believe in without dehumanizing each other to colors and sides and ideologies? And the answer essentially was no. And I was kind of shocked to some degree, but also not, because it's the climate we're in, and I think people are doing what they think is best. But I would beg you to look at, it's been 8 years since, actually it's been many elections already that get this heated. And I guess, when we look at the definition of insanity, why are we still doing the same things, expecting different results? We need a lot of course correction in the way that we interact and engage with our government. We need to be doing a lot of restructuring. The system is failing in so many ways. And, again, I don't want to digress there. What I want to actually, emphasize here is, I have a few posts that I've put up recently, but I would want you to look at what behaviors and ways that you engage or interact with people that you feel are creating harmony or creating divide. And, I understand that, like, everybody can do whatever they want. I'm not here to be a police person around, what people should or shouldn't do at all. I'm all about freedom. But I do think I'm also about consciousness and being aware of when our actions are gonna not produce a result that is supportive for even you. And so, like, we'll give the example of just putting signs on your lawn. I don't have the experience that putting signs of who they want to be president to be a harmonizing activity. I see it as a way to let neighbors know, if you're not this, then I'm not interested in talking to you. Because that's been my experience with people. It's not inviting conversation. It's not creating engagement. And I think until we can be more honest about that, and we really need to look at, is that activity harming our local communities? in our abilities to come together around what matters the most to us. This garden was something that mattered to a good 10 of us, I would say, over the years. Maybe it's come and gone, a few groups of people, but it's been a dedicated group. And we had to, trust me, there's lots of decisions that had to get made. There's lots of things people didn't like along the way, but we had to figure out, because we were committed to this being here, and we were committed to, seeing the vision, the possibility of something actually coming to life. And there's a reason why it took 10 years for us to get to the point where we then finally got the approvals. I mean, people had apparently been, for the 10 years prior to me coming back and joining, we created a community. They couldn't get a garden approved, and, it takes determination. It takes really working hard, but we weren't going and slaying people and yelling at them. We were showing them why what we saw and envisioned was going to be a good thing for our community, our local community. And we live in a country here, at least, where it's very top-down economics, and unfortunately there's many things that come from the federal level down to the local level that are inappropriate for the local community and the needs of the local community. We can't really, you can't govern that way. It really should be the opposite. The community is bringing up what needs to be addressed, and forming and creating and adjusting based on those needs. And that's because you only can do that when you have opportunities to interact and engage in fruitful ways. And so I just wanted to encourage that for you in this process of the next 2 months. And really consider the way that you're approaching it. The heat is going to be turned up, and I have no doubt we're all going to have our breakdowns around all kinds of things. This is not just about an election. This is about a major paradigm shift that's happening on the planet. It's why I have moved towards being a speaker / astrologer and teacher in this way, because there was too much I was witnessing coming into my treatment room that, no matter how many times I had people walk out feeling great, it didn't mean they weren't coming back out into a world where that was really disconnected, and then they easily found themselves disconnected again. And I thought, this is not the best use of me. A better use of me is helping people see the bigger picture and creating, a life that encourages growth. And expansion. And, of course, through these last few years, there's as many people that have really stepped into their own power. I'm one of them. If I think about who I was, I talk a lot about Pluto, since 2008, and who I am now. It's like unrecognizable. I'm a completely different human being. And the other thing about local community it can be hard to make changes with yourself, because you're going to keep going out into a world around you that everybody sees you or knows you or remembers you a certain way. And that was really difficult for me when I came back here, because I just, there's dynamics you remember from when you were growing up in certain areas, and I know for most of us they're not positive all the time. There's many positive things, of course, but there's bullying has been going on for as long as we can remember, and it wouldn't just be between children. It's now, as you see, between adults. And, for young people, that can really affect them. And so I am coming back here. It was a difficult transition, and it's why I've had to come and go quite a bit, and spend time in in Ireland for the last year. I've spent half the year there as a way to give myself the space to continue to evolve, because that can be difficult when you're trying to do that in your local environment, where you're going to continue to run into people and perspective and places that keep reflecting back to you potentially an older version of you, or it doesn't really let you expand. And when you go somewhere new, nobody knows who you are, so you can walk around and be and present yourself whichever way you like. And it felt so good for me to go to a place where nobody knew me. And, obviously I've got sort of a recognizable, especially, with this hair and color hair, whatever. And having been quite vocal in my community, I can be, sort of recognized. I hear all the time, like, oh, I saw you walk. I walk a lot around town and in the parks and such. So anyway, I loved being somewhere where I was just engaging with people and I didn't know them and I could just be whoever. And I found before that I was doing a lot of like not looking at people here in the eye, or kind of avoiding people, or because I didn't want to chance interacting with people in that way. And then coming back from Ireland, it was difficult to transition again because here I was back. But I have such a strength now in who I am, and I'm excited to start bringing this new version of myself to old environments and to old relationships and friendships and my family. It's not going to be comfortable for everybody because they want to put me, we like to do that. We like to put people in boxes so we feel like we know how to interact or engage, and we don't like to be taken by surprise by how someone may present or what their thoughts may be. And a big part of my experience has been actually learning to be quiet. And obviously, for me, I'm a projector in human design. And so if you don't know anything about human design, projectors are a particular group of people they're not here to work, actually. They're here to be guides for the rest of the world, and particularly for the world that we're moving into, because everything is about to shift over these next 3 years, 5 years. It's not going to be like, 2016 till now. We're moving into a very different understanding of what life is and the opportunity to be a human right now. And it isn't all going to be pretty. A lot of gardening isn't pretty, especially when we get to certain parts of the season where, things are starting to die and they need to be, cut back and pulled back. But that's part of, any change. When we're in a garden, there's a reason we have stages of growth in the season. And there's different things we do when we engage with our gardens at different times of year. And we need to kind of do the same thing by connecting with that is natural, to support ourselves, but also in our habits and rituals, and honestly in the way that we engage with each other. I really want to encourage you to spend time figuring out other ways to engage with the people around you if it is not bringing more life and more harmony. I would say it is really a great time for us to do deep dives with ourselves around that, and get honest with ourselves around that, and think about what is the opportunity for you in that. What way can you expand or shift forward? This is the moment. I'm just going to say these years, they're the moment for us to do these big shifts. And they're not easy, like I said, I had to go to another country for 4 months, to really do it. But I had to honor what I was feeling coming up, and what I would call divine intervention, and tons of synchronicity and opportunities presenting themselves very effortlessly. And when that's happening, I know that I'm on the right track. But it does mean I'm going to have to make difficult decisions. It does mean I'm going to have to leave things that I know. It does mean that I'm going to have difficult conversations. It does mean that I'm likely not going to be in a lot of friendships and relationships that I once was, if that relationship isn't also evolving. But I am not going to approach that from a perspective of, oh, you don't agree with me politically, so I'm going to separate myself from you. I think that is the worst thing we could be doing with each other. I think it's more like, let's sit and talk. And yeah, maybe we aren't meant to spend as much time together anymore, but let's get clear why, so that we actually support each other to get stronger in who each of us is, and encourage ourselves to expand beyond where we've been. And just realize that the only thing that's for sure is change and death. We're all going to die. These gardens, they're going to die this year, and the garden has helped me really, really respect that process of life and death, and that when death happens, quite literally, in the case of these plants, they drop seeds for the next year. They become compost and they fertile soil for creating what's coming next year. And this place will never look the same each year. It's completely different what it looks like and feels like based on what's growing and who has been nurturing that growth and the love they've been putting into this. I truly believe that a tomato that is grown in a garden isn't just more flavorful because it's just in your garden outside and it's local, but it's because of the energy you're putting towards it and have been putting towards it, whether it's from a seed or a seedling. or protecting it from other animals eating it, whatever you've done, that energy is infused into that fruit, and then you get to eat it and experience that. And I'm a Taurus, sun and moon, and that's what we appreciate, is our sensory experiences, beauty. Taurus is ruled by Venus, and so I just thought I would remind you of all that in these times of, these stressful times and these times of divide, that we all have a choice to put our energy into something that is bringing more hate and divide, or something that's bringing people together. And I'm not going to go and highlight, there's people back there I know talking as an example, but that's what gets created when you put your passion first, and people first, and our environments first, and possibility first. All right. Have a wonderful Sunday. If you're in New Jersey, I really hope you get out today. It's incredibly gorgeous after yesterday's strange weather. And for those of you that were feeling it yesterday arthritically, it was definitely the perfect temperatures for arthritis to make itself known. So anyway, sending you lots of love.